Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. This episode of Playas Guide, I'm going to talk about something that I call the nostalgia factor. You may have heard me refer to this term in other videos before. Maybe you can assume what it means, but if you don't know, I'm going to tell you exactly what the nostalgia factor is in this video. Like I said, I've used the term nostalgia factor before, and what it means is I usually use it around the time when games really start to kick off and go into an incline in price. And that's, if you can start buying games before the nostalgia factor, then you're ahead of the game in terms of collecting. You can save some money. Now, the reason I call it nostalgia factor is because when that curve starts going up, that's when nostalgia kicks in for a lot of people. So for various consoles, you'll see different ways that this will happen at different times, and this is usually because collectors either understand and start catching on to the nostalgia factor for certain things, which you'll see in this video, or because a generation is sort of too young to really be serious about collecting for a game. Maybe they just don't have the disposable income at that time. They could be in school or a college or university, or maybe they're just learning their skills in the workplace, and they're not really getting paid, full value of what their potential of what they, will one day be worth. In the workplace market. And then when they do get those higher paying jobs, they have a little bit more free money to spend. Or they've budgeted for a long time and saved their money to take care of, certain things like their family, their home, whatever living expenses there are, that they have a disposable income from that budgeting that they can now afford to start a game collection or collect for a specific console that they really enjoy. And what happens is that's usually happening around the same time for a lot of people, within like 2 or 3 years. And this is reflected based on a console's lifespan. For me, I started collecting around 2000. Now, I had a small video game collection before that, but actually going out and hunting for different games and picking them up on a weekly basis, I would say I didn't start doing till about 2000. And I did that with the NES because the NES at that time was being liquidated from a lot of video stores. Same with SNES. SNES was on the way out. N64 was still quite popular, but the consoles at that time that were, either coming out or still current generation consoles were the PS1, N64, and then the Xbox, and then PS2, and then Gamecube came along. So the NES and SNES really didn't have too much value. The NES, people were basically giving those games away. I did get a few free games. I know some video stores, would just throw out copies of Super Mario Duck Hunt because it was such a common game. It was worthless. They wouldn't take them in for any sort of trade value or anything because it might be worth 25 cents to them. The trade value is basically nothing on that, maybe a penny, if you're really desperate to sell that game. Now, I've seen that game in past years go all the way up to like $25. I've seen it in game stores, and maybe you haven't seen that. That's on the really high end. I thought that was ridiculous. And I've never seen it above that, but I have seen some pretty crazy prices for a Mario Duck Hunt cartridge. And this is a game that people at one time were trying to build coffee tables out of and thrones out of and make Nintendo furniture because it was such a disposable game. And for years, I enjoyed collecting NES games because they were dirt cheap, and I was able to amass a pretty decent sized collection. I'll put the collection video at the end of this so you could check it out after this. And what happened over the years is I didn't think anyone else was really doing this because it was cheap and it was fun for me. But then I started finding out about different websites and things going on in 2008. I would say in 2009 there was, even more websites and knowledge out there for video game collecting, more so specifically for the Nintendo Entertainment System and, some Atari and arcade stuff. There were sites like Nintendo Age, Atari Age, one site that I still visit but isn't as busy as it used to be is the Classic Game Collectors Canada, the CGCC. But what happened in 2010 to 2011, I noticed that the games were starting to go up. And at this time, there was only a few games from the licensed library that I was looking for. And I was looking for them online now. I never bought games online until this time because I decided, hey, I'm going to go for a complete collection. Things like Power Packs and EverDrives were not really around, and I didn't have knowledge of them. They came shortly after this, or around this time is when they started coming out with those devices, which are very convenient, if you're just looking to play every game, which is what I was trying to do. And the way to play every game was to collect them all. And it sort of snowballed and went out of control from there. But in 2009, there was, I was starting to see some of these games that I was looking at that I didn't have, like Little Samson, go up in price. It was like a $90 game or something like that, which was expensive. That was like 2 brand new games. And I eventually pulled the trigger on that and I think it was either 2010 or 11, because I saw the game continuously go up. It wasn't coming down. None of the more expensive games were coming down. In fact, around that time, many of the cheaper and more popular games were getting momentum on eBay in terms of the value of what they were selling for. So video game collecting was becoming more popular. And a $90 game was mind-blowing to me at the time that a game like Little Samson could sell for that much. And a few years before, looking at stadium events for like $300. It was just mind-blowing. Who on earth would spend $300 on a sports game just because it's rare? And, I wish my mentality was a little bit different and I had the foresight that I'm trying to share with you now in this video. So what happened is the games started going up. They kept going up. The value of the NES console started to go up. Everything kind of around it was just slowly increasing. And I'll put a chart up here that I took for PriceCharting to show you exactly what I'm talking about here, so you can see for yourself. I'm going to do this for all of these consoles. And it just continued to go up and up and up until about 2017. Games kind of cooled off a bit. Now, what happened here is people, who are now in their, 30s and 40s. I'm going to say mid 30s to mid 40s. That's sort of the 80s child NES audience. And they, at that time, were 25 to 35 and had established themselves enough that they had this disposable income that I'm talking about, and they were able to purchase things from their childhood, things that they were nostalgic for. And this is what I'm calling this the nostalgia factor for, is because that's when we saw the prices go up. That generation had the money to buy back some of the things they wanted from their childhood, start collecting this because they saw, there was people like me before going for complete sets, maybe saw some pictures of people's game rooms, because there's people that I look at their game rooms and I'm super impressed by that I was seeing at that time. And there's people I want that. That's what they thought. I want that. They're going for it. So prices kept going up and up. 2017, I think most of the people who got in for the nostalgia factor and got serious about collecting had acquired most of what they wanted. For myself, I'm quite content. I was content before that. But by that time, the majority of people were content with what they had. So things mellowed out. In 2017, even you started to see it a bit in 2016. Prices for the NES kind of cooled off. It wasn't until 2020 where we saw this boom because everybody's been staying home. looking for something to buy online to keep themselves interested and busy, that prices have started to go up again. And that actually is something you're going to see here for just about every console. In 2020 went up, except for the Wii. Take a look at the Wii here. Since I think about 2008, the Wii has just been going downhill, because after 2008, there wasn't a lot of great games coming out, and the Wii U came out shortly after. So the value of these games just depreciated and totally ate shit, and they're not worth much right now. So if you're really interested in collecting for the Wii, now's a good time. I think we're going to start to see that now with the Wii U, where people have just kind of completely lost interest in it. Their games don't hold a lot of value, and the people who are going to be buying them from here on out are going to be collectors. That's what you want to collect for. I'm giving you the heads up on those because those are going to be the cheap consoles right now. PS3 is another one. If you take a look here, PS3 has just been on the decline for a while now. It's going to start to go up a little bit in the next year or two, probably. But I also have some other thoughts for 2020 and 2023 that I'm going to cover in next week's episode, so be sure you're subscribed to the channel if you want to find out what happens there. 2012, 2013, people started buying up Super Nintendo. You can see it right here, people. I'm going to put these charts up here that I got from PriceCharting, because it's the most accurate representation of what I'm talking about that I could find on the internet. If you could think of something better, please link it below in the comment sections. I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are. So shortly after Super Nintendo started to go up, because that generation of gamers, my generation, we played Super Nintendo. It was the next upgrade from 8-bit graphics. You could see the same here for the Sega Genesis. In fact, the Sega Genesis is still going up. The reason for that is because Nintendo is always the most popular consoles to collect for, and people started to look at the prices of the Super Nintendo and the NES, and they thought, you know, screw that, those prices are getting too high. Even at that time in 2012, 2013, that you saw 2013, 2014, the Sega Genesis started to pick up some momentum because it was the next best thing. And it's still got a lot of momentum because it has a bigger library than both the NES and Super NES. And there's some really good quality titles, some really interesting stuff on the Genesis that us Nintendo fans didn't get. So shortly after this time, the N64, another cartridge-based console from the late 90s, would start to see an increase. This was in 2013, 2014. And I believe what happened here is that many of the early on collectors, myself included, I actually started collecting for the N64 around 2013, 2014. I started collecting because it was a smaller console, and I knew at this point about the nostalgia factor because I saw what was happening with the NES, and then I saw it start happening again shortly after with the Super Nintendo, and then the Genesis was getting momentum. So I knew it was going to happen with the N64, and I think a lot of other collectors saw this happening too, which is why they started, the nostalgia factor here kicked in a little bit earlier, which is why they started buying it earlier on. Really, I think it should have jumped maybe 2015, or even 2016, but that's not what happened. I think 2015 would be more realistic. So those three are all very close. The Genesis could get grouped in there, so making it a little bit trickier to predict some of the others, right? Because they're spaced out a bit more. So that's what happened with the N64. The N64 is still on the rise, but it should be cooling off a bit now, or should be cooling off soon with the prices. But, you know, that's for another episode. 2017 now is when we started to see Gamecube. 2016 even a bit. And this is right in line with what I'm talking about with the nostalgia factor. Let's say N64 had started a bit later on, which it didn't, and that's because it had a smaller collection, easy for collectors who are aware of this to start going after those games. The GameCube, now we're getting into the disc-based stuff. 2016, 2017, you're going to see that's when the GameCube started to go up. Nostalgia factor. Let's take a look at the ages of the people who would have been playing this console in the early 2000s. 10, 15 years later for them, they're in their mid-20s or early 30s. So they got a little bit of money to start dumping into the nostalgic consoles for them that they grew up with, and that's the GameCube. Now, with the GameCube, if we look back at 2011, 2012, with the NES and SNES were starting to go up, the GameCube was very low, dirt cheap. That would have been the best time to collect for it, but most collectors were going after the NES and the SNES because of the nostalgia factor. Now, the PlayStation was about 2014, where I thought the N64 should have fell, but because it's Nintendo, because collectors, myself included, became aware of the nostalgia factor, it started up a little bit before the PlayStation. And plus, Nintendo is always going to have a more collectible appeal to collectors, because for years, the name has been synonymous with video games, longer than any other gaming company out there. And at a lot of times, Nintendo has dominated the market. And I know for a younger generation, that might be hard to believe, but it was true at a time. And they're still in there. They're still doing pretty good with the Switch. So 2014, that's when we started to see the PS1 start to become more collectible. Now, in the past few years, it's really started to go up a lot. In fact, in 2020, I would say the PlayStation stuff and the GameCube stuff has gone up the most. And there is definitely a bit of a generation gap between those two, because the GameCube games that had counterparts on PlayStation, those would have been on the PS2. I talked about the PS2 and the PS3. So the PS2 was pretty low for a while. Around 2012, it was very low at its lowest point, and then it's just gradually been just starting to climb its way up. And I think for the PS2, now is a really good time to start collecting, because we have seen some spikes in some of the more rare and collectible games, and it's starting to gain some momentum. So those games will hold their value for a while and will continue to go up. PS3 is dirt cheap right now. It has been for the past 3 years, I'd say. Maybe 4 years. I don't know. Anyways, usually when a new console gets introduced is when we see the other last generation of consoles start to drop off. I think most of you guys watching this are probably pretty much in tune with that by now. Anyways, that's a gist of some of the major consoles. Xbox 360 is sort of in there with the PS3 right now, but it's even cheaper. And if you're interested in collecting for these consoles, I got some videos on the top 10 rarest games and some other games that you should keep an eye out for, because they are uncommon or they're very undervalued in terms of their rarity. And I do suspect they will go up over time. So now's a good chance to watch those videos, go back through the Playas Guide playlist, and then you'll get a chance maybe to snag a couple of those at game stores, flea markets, or whatever's open, whatever's really open around you. Or if you feel it's a good investment, buy it on eBay. eBay generally, you could get some good deals on eBay, but generally eBay sets the standard for what prices should be. Xbox is another one. Its lowest point, I would say, would have been about 2010, and judging by these charts here, that's pretty accurate. 2010, 2012 started to go up a little bit. It's small increments, but we haven't seen too much from the Xbox until 2020, which is in line with where it should be at. So I think what's happening here is the COVID has caused a spike for a lot of video game collecting, because people are doing it from their home and buying the games online. They don't have as many options to go out and buy those games from game stores, conventions, flea markets, thrift stores. Some of those places are shut down, have been shut down, and have reopened. People just don't necessarily want to go out as much. game hunting, especially when you're rummaging through, let's say, a bin of dirty old grimy games, is probably not the safest thing to do, because we know, you're probably exposing yourself to some germs. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I think this video went a little bit longer than I had intended it to, but it's going to lead into next week's video, and I've seen a couple other YouTubers talk about this. It's called the retro gaming bubble, or the video game collecting bubble, and it's this idea that there's this bubble and games keep inflating and inflating, and they can't go up much bigger, and I've been hearing this for years, and it's going to pop, and everything's going to crumble and be worthless. So I'm going to watch a couple videos of what other people are saying, and I'm going to tell you what I think about that, because I think a lot of them are wrong, and there's a lot of skeptics that have been saying this for years, and the nostalgia factor is going to be brought into that and reflected upon to just show you what is probably actually going to happen to the video game collecting market in the not so distant future, and what has been happening, and why some of those predictions just aren't properly founded, and are nothing but theories that are people throwing out there. Also, I got these boglins back here in the background. Maybe you noticed it. I got some toys from my mom's basement that I've been thinking about going through and maybe sharing with you guys on YouTube. If that's something you're interested in, is old toys from my childhood and maybe your childhood, if you're an 80s or 90s kid and you want to see them and me go over them and cover some of the aspects of that. I'm not a toy collector, but I think it might be a fun little series to do on the channel that might be relatable to some of you. So if you are interested in that, let me know in the comments below. Please like the video. If you're interested in next week's video and video game collecting and retro games, then subscribe to the channel. Well, why haven't you done that already? And be sure to follow Playas Guide on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, because there's daily retro gaming content, daily streams. There's a great community that we've built here on Playas Guide. You can find that on Twitch and by joining the Playas Guide Discord. Playas Guide wants to be your source for retro gaming and collecting. Later, Playas.